Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and wherever you're watching from, thank you so much for joining us today. I am 𝗫𝗲𝗁𝗍𝗲. I am filling in for Eric, who's traveling for the next few weeks. So we've got some guest hosts coming up. So be excited for next week because it's going to be a great host. Thank you for joining us. I've been with Streamline for 12 years. I am the marketing project manager. I manage the Plein Air Salon art competition, and I am also the community ambassador for Pastel Today, our newsletter for all things pastel. Kelly does a fantastic job with the content, and then I add in some community highlights, just talking about things that are going on in the pastel community and societies and all things like that. So check that out. It comes out every Friday. You can find it at pasteltoday.com. With us today is artist Xenia Sease. And I was just thinking about it and realized that I actually found Xenia's artwork like a decade ago. I don't even remember how long, back when I was first starting with Streamline, and I just love her work. So I got to officially meet her through the Pastel Society of Colorado this year and got to paint with her last weekend, which was super fun. So join me in welcoming Xenia. Hi,
Hello,
Xenia. How are you doing?
Carrie, and everyone out there watching.
How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. A little
Awesome.
jittery, but
It's going to be okay. Just shake them out and
yeah,
shake out the jitters.
I'll be shaking
And I'm super excited that you are here today and you have something special you're going to talk to us about.
that. Okay, well, I don't know how special it is, but
I
I know that
I struggle with it.
yeah, a lot of people, and I have experienced this. So I'll be showing, my approach to painting a predominantly green landscape and how I keep it from becoming monotonous and while still hopefully making it believable or natural looking, and maybe evocative is the other thing that I want to go after. So yeah, and
Perfect.
we'll talk about how, I guess, how we can make green colors a little more interesting than just the straight on color that as pastelists we tend to complain about that we don't have.
Yes, exactly. Awesome. Well, we're going to get this show started. Amandine is going to roll that video.
Great.
It's Art School Live with Eric Rhodes. Now, here's your host, Eric Rhodes.
𝗫𝗲𝗁𝗍𝗲. I love doing that. That's never going to get old for me. If you're just joining us, I'm 𝗫𝗲𝗁𝗍𝗲, filling in for Eric, who is traveling right now. He's at Fall Color Week, painting the beautiful coast of California. And I am here with Xenia Sease, who is going to be showing us how to paint greens with pastel. So I am super excited. And without further ado, here is Xenia.
All right. Well, I'm out of the camera, which is good. um, and what you see on my board here is, well, basically, it's my value sketch. And this is often how I, go about doing any painting. Sometimes I do like an alcohol wash or set in my darks. In this case, I'll just directly go on top the dry pastel. And working with a toned um, board or paper. This one is a toned board, sanded board, not too rough. Um, and this is my go-to toned paper, just because it's on the neutral side and it has a really great ability to like not fight with colors. So it has a unifying effect. So as you can see, my photo reference right there is not that great, and that's one of the drawbacks of working from photographs. Especially when I took this, it was really bright out there, and so oftentimes when you photograph things with that really bright sky, the shadows get pretty um, dark and you lose a lot of information. Um, and green as it is, like especially when I was starting plein air painting, it can be overwhelming and it's like a visual overload. So I I'm able more now to keep it, keep from becoming overwhelmed. And, I have a few more tools under my belt to work with, and, and have learned what I need to focus on or what to look out for when it's that, uh, when you're confronted with all that green. So,
I'm going to interrupt you and tell you that Lamia says hi.
oh, well, hello, Lamia. I looked up to Lamia, so I'm so glad that she's here. Yeah, okay, well, let's first, so how do I not get overwhelmed? So there are, three to four things that I, try to kind of take the time to establish. So the following, just stop, breathe, absorb the environment. If you are outdoors painting this scene or green scene, or if you're looking at your photo, I just try to really connect with my feelings about that scene. I figure out my intent. Why am I painting this? This is a good time to find adjectives for it. And what feelings did the scene elicited? Or what it elicited from you in terms of the light, the colors, any of that. In this case, what I was really drawn to the grouping of the dark trees and this really strong, like in the photo, the really strong green meadow or grass in the distance. So that, to me, there was this like sense of vibrancy, and yet with the overall feel of the scene, it gave me a soothing warmth about it. So that's what I'm hoping that I can, convey when I get this painting done. And then, so to help me hone in on my focal area, I try to look for those, like strong contrast, and decide whether this scene also is, going to be a high key painting or a low key painting. In this case, it's going to be high key because it's pretty brightly lit. It's sunny. There's a lot of these bright greens being hit by the sun, and the amount of darks is considerably smaller than the lights. So it's a high key painting. And then what I try to find out is, and this is, perception, and we tend to have, different perception, especially, male versus female, about warmth of colors or the warmth of the scene. So I would try to establish what's my dominant temperature. Is it predominant, more warm or more cool, or vice versa? In this case, I'm going to be, I'm going to follow the warmth of the scene more than, and what I will, contrast it with this, hopefully the smaller amount of cooler temperature tones of the greens on the trees in the distance. And yeah, so, and then of course, as I go along painting this, I'll be I'll be trying to focus on the values, the temperature, and chroma shifts, because those are really important in creating dimension in your landscape. And also with the green colors, it really helps to create a more interesting green when it's got those subtle shifts in the color temperature and values. They just have that ability to give more of the form of also the trees or even the grass. So yeah, so let's start. So you see, I've established my darks, and my lightest light, besides the sky, of course, will be, well, the sky is always going to be the lightest, unless it's like dark blooming storm. So then once I've got that, then I often start with my darkest areas, and I would, try to just layer all my dark areas, and dust already showing, and just,
Ooh, I love that color.
yeah, this is on the cool side of the dark green. So I will just find these kind of areas that, the sun isn't quite reaching. And I know this mass of what kind of trees were these? I think they were juniper trees, and it was like a big grouping of it. But the one thing, I've changed, if you've noticed, my photo is actually a rectangular format, and I've zoomed in a little bit more and tried to, just for the sake of time, but I also love square format, so this will hopefully give it the same feeling as what I had initially done, because I've actually painted this outdoors directly on plein air. And so what I know from my photo, that what I'm seeing is that there's really a lot more information in the shadow areas. It's not all this like kind of flat, solid, dark mass, that there are a lot of these subtle shifts in lights in there, and some kind of ambient lighting that, tends to reflect back into the shadow. So any of the greens on that, on the grass. And by the way, this photo shows this mass of what do you call these? Wild sunflowers. I'm going to omit those, but I am going to put a few of those sunflowers in, just to create movement into, and allow me to feel like I can step in and just follow, kind of, smell the roses. But in this case, they're sunflowers. I've actually never smelled them, so I don't know if they will smell like roses. But the thing I also didn't want, this mass of sunflower leaves in the foreground created a barrier to me, and I didn't like that, especially when my focus is really in the distant area with that contrast of light and the dark trees. So I want to omit that. I don't think that's really going to help my intent or convey, but I will try to ground the foreground a little bit, and so it's not so light. It helps to have something a little darker in the foreground to just help re-emphasize the sense of depth, because although in this case depth doesn't always mean just using your lightest lights, or your grayish tones all in the distance. It can also be represented with mass, with shades. So darker shapes tend to come forward as it is. So this is far closer to us, and even though it may, on the photo too, it may look like that it's almost close to a value. Maybe there's like a one value difference or two, but it already, with the size of those trees in the distance, and how it kind of follow along with this ground, the plane, how it changes, how the trees are beginning to get smaller, and that creates a sense of depth if you're going to rely on that, instead of just doing the whole value and color temperature shifts. But I will follow this, because I do like having a little bit more atmospheric effect going on with my colors. So I pushed my darks. I gotta wipe my hands, because when I'm painting out there, especially when I'm outdoors, it's you're trying to get the sun to not change on you, the lighting to not change on you quickly. So I often just like really mark a little bit of my lightest light in this, you know, in the scene. In this case, it's really this area, right? That was my lightest scene. So I might just stumble that a little bit over. I'm not gonna go too crazy just quite yet, because with pastels, when you get too light too quickly and then you try to darken it, that's when you get the chalky look.
Mhm.
So I will, be a little bit skimpy on that. I know there's a little bit of white there, but I just want to make sure that I don't lose that. Okay, so it's really what makes green interesting is really how you layer all these different colors over it. And the one thing that I know I've experienced this, as when I first started just working with pastel, and I had very limited selection of pastel, and I was constantly complaining that I didn't have this right color of green, and especially when I do a plein air painting, I really don't have a big box. I only work with my 8x10 box.
I can
So
confirm that. I had far too many pastels compared to Xenia.
yeah, so it's really, but then before it was just like, okay, I can't do this, right? It's like I don't have the colors. Because as we know, pastelists, we don't really directly mix our colors on our palette. We do our optical mixing on the painting itself directly, right?
Mhm.
So that's often where the challenge is, that when you just, if you don't, and this is where later on maybe I can talk about simultaneous contrast. How after really, understanding understanding the effects of colors as, so simultaneous contrast is really the idea that colors are relative. But more importantly is that with any given color, the value, the temperature, and the chroma can change depending on what color you put next to it, and or around it. And I can probably show a little bit of that. I don't. Let's see if you can see. So I've done these kind of tests in showing how this exact same green. It's the same. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. This it's the same green that I used on all of these. But look how this green, against this dark, cool tone, looks quite warm, right? And
Mhm.
bright in comparison to the one next to it that is surrounded by something a little bit more dull. And look how it gets even darker looking when it's against something even lighter.
Yeah.
So that's with complement, right? I mean, yeah, you get that feeling of vibration with complements, but I do with my greens. I avoid doing too much mixing in with the reds, just because it tends to, especially if you don't get the same value as the green that you have on there, that's when you start to get the muddying effect.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I would just do that if, like, let's say there are things that I want to tone down, not make it as vibrant, but at the same time, keep it kind of on the warm side. But you can also do that with oranges, and oranges, as you can see here, they have a nicer way of playing with green, especially when when you allow that color to show through. So I see a lot of artists use that as their I guess when they tone their paper. So the orange or even the pinks. I tend to, like, as you can see, when I started my piece, my go-to sketching or dark colors when I do my value or kind of toning, or my board, I tend to use the purple, like the grayish purple, like I think there's this one stick that I use that's like I think it's called Payne's Gray. So
Yeah.
it's on the purple side. So I like that. And then of course, for the really darkest darks, I use this lovely eggplant color.
Gotta love the eggplant.
Gotta love the eggplant. So I know I can see this thing has become round. It started square. So that's how much I've used it. I rely on that for my darks. So yeah. So it's important that you understand kind of how greens are affected, right? Because if I only really have this one green for a spot in my scene, that I can manipulate that green to look different in different ways. So that's why the idea of simultaneous contrast, that let's say if I put this green against something really dark right here, you see how it's pretty bright and light. But if I put it next to a light color, look how it changes, right?
Yeah.
Look how it's darker now in comparison to that. So that's how you can make your color go farther, by understanding those shifts, those changes that happen when when you put it against another color, or when you overlay. So I can even make this, if I wanted to cool that color down, I may just and it's actually a little bit out there, so I may just layer a little bit of a light purple, because purple has a cooling effect. You see how all of a sudden it kind of toned it down and cooled it down, but it's still that kind of the same green, but now I've changed the look of it. So okay, let's get something more put on our scene here. So I just want to, okay, so I do try to establish some of these base color close to my focal area, because I work off from that. If I can establish those like a good value that I want in my focal area, then that will really help me just, okay, I like, see here, I know. I might just try to cool this down just a little bit more. So I'm using this kind of lighter grayish purple to cool some of those trees.
I am loving just the atmosphere and the feeling of this painting compared to the reference photo.
Right? Yeah. And this is where I really want to emphasize that if you're going to really, or if you enjoy landscape painting and this is your thing, your best classroom is really getting out there and making your observations with what's going on with all those greens, what's happening in the shadows, what's, what are you, like, take a photo also, and then look at that photo and then look at the scene at the same time and make those comparisons. And really, you'd be surprised that you're like, whoa, this camera just did not show all that, all those colors that you see in the shadow, or even in the light areas. Oftentimes the camera will overexpose highlights and make them look white. And in this case, it also tend to make the sky look washed out and white. I know the scene in my photo almost looked like this flat, and actually it looks cool in real life. So let me try to see if I can, in real life, the sky that day had a warm cast to it and a warm glow towards the horizon, because I think that day, I mean, it was for pretty early summer, maybe late spring, when I painted there, and there was, you know, enough moisture in the air, and moisture, you know, creates this kind of a warming effect in your sky.
I did not know that.
Yeah, well, it's just, it has basically more particles for that, you know, kind of impedes the look of the blue sky, right? So it tends to warm up. Well, smoke can do that too, and right now we have quite a bit of smoke in
We do.
in the air. And if you look at the horizon, look at that blue sky. It's no longer going to be really a cool color. It's a little bit more warmed up. So, okay. I'm a slow painter, so bear with me. Hopefully I can get as much, you know, as possible on this painting. So let's see. I probably will kind of break this up, you know. I'll do later on, try to create little sky holes in there just to make it a little bit more interesting. Okay. So don't worry about, you know, I may redefine my, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to warm it up quite a little bit. This is kind of a pinkish purple, but I might even try to okay. That just, you know, will help also kind of re-emphasize. So I may have to it's a little too bright, but is it a video showing the subtlety of this, or is it just washing it out like it's
It's kind of washing it out a little bit, but the
yeah, you know,
awesome.
I know. Sometimes if I do that, it will yeah, it does look washed out, doesn't it? I know I see a lot more color than what the camera is, but I couldn't not paint with this light. I can if I try, maybe if I turn off. Is that now it's too dark and the video, yeah, the video is creating some
We'll
weird
have you take
vibration.
a picture of it when you're done, and
Yeah,
post it on the Facebook page.
okay. So now what happened is, see how the color shifted earlier? This was light. Now it, like, all of a sudden it got dark. One of the things to, you know, that I will do to soften that is get a little bit closer in value on that green area. So okay, I didn't pull out all my greens, but let's start with this a little bit because I didn't want to make it too purple. But I will probably just try to see if I can get closer in value. So there's not, because even though this is close enough to my focal area, you know how focal areas we tend to say, you know, that put your sharpest edges there, right? Well, yeah, I mean, I think this area here will be sharp enough that I don't want at the top of my trees to really be too sharp. I still want to push them back and make them appear like they're just, okay. All right. That's pushed back a little bit more, right? Okay. So let's try and develop this a little bit more. No, it's.
We are all loving your color palette.
Just this what do you call this? This tree, and I said it's the juniper tree, right? We have a lot of that here in Colorado. It's in the wild. It's a cooler. So this tree right here is a little bit more in the back. So I'll shift the color of that a little bit later, but I'm not going to worry too much about that quite yet, because where I want is the ability to get a sense of all these green colors. And yeah, as you can see, I will be, it's a little hard to kind of work here on my side. I'm usually right in front, like my face really close to my piece. And I'm trying, because I have bad eyesight, and oftentimes that can get in the way. So I don't want to obliterate those, important dark colors. But I know that this is, it's really cool, but because when I put these warmer color greens, the one thing I will do with these other greens, though, I may try to just kind of create what I call the, but maybe this is a little bit too dark. We'll see. Yeah, that's still, oh, okay. I'll put it. But I don't worry about getting too dark at the beginning, because it's a lot easier to lighten it. But what I don't want is getting too light at the beginning, because that's when you can end up with a chalky look when you're trying to lighten up those dark areas. So I am just going to kind of see here how I can move the eye with my dark. And why not? I can go ahead and put this. There's a little fence area there. I'm changing it a little bit. I'm gonna, kind of try to make it like a gate entrance. All right, just establishing that. So then I'm gonna try to just put a little bit of the dark areas here and there, and this is kind of a warmer green, but it's also still dark. Oh, okay. All right. There's also just yeah, it looks kind of weird right now, but that's going to be covered up. So I'm seeing a lot. I don't know where to point. In the photo, I'm seeing, some vibration of kind of these warmish browns, or kind of, I guess, mauves. It's from there's a lot of these, I don't know what you call those, thistle type pods, or from the year before, how when they dry up.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm just gonna try to establish that there. And as I go a little bit farther into some of these area, I will just try to.
I like that you're going in different directions, because I noticed when we were painting on Saturday, I kept going vertical because that's what my eye was seeing was the vertical grasses, and it just
Yeah.
terrible.
Well, sometimes it just creates those interesting marks, because if you just constantly do vertical, you're gonna have this like stiff looking grass, right? But if you vary your marks, you're just, of course, in the distance here, you want to try to go as horizontal as you can. So even though I'm holding my stick a little bit, well, vertical, I'm only kind of using the top quarter of the stick to create that a little bit more flatter, because we know grass, to the distance, it tends to look kind of just flat. You're not seeing all the marks of those individual reeds, where you don't often, anyway, see those. Okay, so I am, and whenever I'm just thinking that I'm getting too bland with my green in the distance, I'll go, try to kind of still scumble some of this purple. I love purple.
I don't want
A
to
great
pressure on you, but we've got about 15 minutes.
Oh, okay. Gosh, time flies. Anyway,
It
all right.
does.
Oh gosh. Okay. Oh boy. I thought I turned off that ring.
Oh, we didn't even hear anything, so you're good.
Oh, you did it. Good. Okay. Let's start to see. I told you I'm a little bit of a, when it comes to, okay, there's some lightning effect that happens at the top here. So the sky is still somewhat lower on the ground. Ground on this in the sky. It's not quite as at the top, right? We'll, wait. Okay, I am going to start just seeing how much. There's that one photo, I think, that you showed. That is the plein air piece that I did of the scene. So if I don't get as much done over here, I will recommend to look at that, how I've kind of varied my green colors. So in here, I will try to create some warming effect. I know it seems like the camera just isn't capturing all that. And believe it or not, there's even just somewhat of a cool, warm tint, just almost, at the base. It could very well be that I didn't see that there might be some kind of, dirt brown that's reflecting back into it. Okay, so let's see if I can make these area just a little bit more. Okay. Exciting. And go back again in here to just
Wow, if I squint my eyes, I can see myself there. That just is, and the depth you have with the atmosphere is so cool.
and this is something I have to also be you know, mindful about, that my horizon, you know, the grass can affect the what do you call that, the feel of the base, right? But when your horizon or doesn't quite or isn't quite straight, it can feel wonky. So so that's what I'm gonna try to eliminate. And there's that. This is a pretty strong green, but you know what? I like strong colors. Okay, my stick is getting stuck somewhere there. Okay. See how this green feels dark right there, but when I put it here, it seems to lighten up.
Mm-hmm.
And I may, you know, I probably will have to try to darken that a little bit. No, it's not the color. Oh. So even in the studio, I'm like feeling like I don't have that green. Okay. I'm just going to create a little bit more, just so that we can feel like there's a lot more going on now.
They love
And
your visual with the little sheets you showed us with the swatches of green.
yeah, that to me, you know, doing those studies, it helps to, you know, get to know the greens that you do have, right? And see how you can manipulate them. Okay, so there's a little bit more light. I'll try to kind of cut in there. God, the color in real life, for me at least, it's a lot more vibrant than what I'm seeing on my screen. So, okay. This whole high key thing, it still feels somewhat, oh,
Ruh-roh.
yeah, there goes my tape. Okay.
I love your transition from mid-ground by that tree to the background grasses. That is so cool.
Whoops. Yeah, let's just see. I know this is kind of, you see how when I'm scumbling this over some of these color,
Mm-hmm.
it's creating a nice grounding or back, you know, there's a lot going on in these foreground masks. But like I said, I'm not going to try and do it exactly the way it is on the photo. but now I do need to kind of pick up a little bit more brightness. Just to move the eye. Okay. And okay. Oftentimes when I'm painting landscape, I always tell myself, how am I going to get in there? Are there areas that I can kind of step into, right? Like those directional shape, or even maybe there's an opening somewhere. So
I love that. How do you get into the painting?
yeah, how do you walk in? How do you allow the viewer to walk in there? You know, that's why I removed that barrier. Now I can paint something with the foreground, what you call that, sunflowers. But yeah, if I did that, then it's going to be a different story, and I would have to change my emphasis, right? I may have to tone down. Okay, and I like that green. Are you seeing? So this, you know, this gets to be closer to the and then I just will scumble it around there. Okay, that's kind of getting busy. So if I get too little itsy bitsy mark into the distance, you need to quiet it down, otherwise it could. So I will just this tree right here does need a little bit more definition. So as soon as I put this color on here, all of a sudden that whole distant tree got much darker. I mean, there is the effect of lightening along the edge of the tree here. And I might have to. So I might have to kind of get this. So yeah.
Wow, love it.
I have to pull this one edge right here. But I don't know if I have my. Okay, something light. You see, I thought I pulled that colors that might help, but I kind of didn't.
Okay, we've got about 5 minutes left.
Okay. Yeah, 40 minutes isn't enough, right?
Enough time,
like,
right?
Yeah, like I said, I'm one of those really slow painter. And I just and there's a little bit happening there. Wow. Okay. So how is it reading. It looks so washed out in my.
It looks beautiful. We all love it.
It's so quiet. No one's asking questions. Boy,
Because
I'm either
you're doing such a good job.
I'm either not really explaining myself well, and so they're like, okay, let's not confuse her any more than necessary. Right? But let's just put some kind of interesting opening there. Just to create.
Everyone loves it, says you're a great teacher. We are in awe of watching the color go on. You're doing a great job.
Oh gosh, thank you. I know it's this. The key that I'm trying to make sure I don't. So this is where in the distant grass, I might have to just try to put a little bit more again of this purple to quiet, especially along the edges of the painting, right? I would stumble over it. Let's look what happens when I put. So, here we go. Because even that green can, and I would just maybe, I will want to put a little bit more interest near my focal area.
We have a question. Is there
Yes.
a problem or remedy if you get too much pastel in one place?
Oh, yeah. Guess what? This is your, so just,
Brush it off.
really brush it off. You just want to get as much or enough that you can, have the grit back and then go over it again with, with your pastel. That's why sometimes it's like I try not to pull out my warmest, what do you call these? Softest pastel sticks in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
because that's when
you get too much on there.
Yeah, it fills up the tooth faster than the harder stick. So it's kind of where you're gonna have to also adjust your pressure when you're holding a pretty soft buttery stick,
Mm-hmm.
really, like I always say, butterfly kisses. And you get to know, especially with your own whatever paper that you're so I realized as I kind of step back, and this is something I have a harder time doing as I'm doing this demo. It's harder to step back because I got kind of the camera that the foreground felt still much cooler, right? And that's one of those you just have to keep adjusting, assessing, how your colors are, especially with green. Like as we see that initially, what you thought might be a pretty warm green or a cool green, all of a sudden it's looking a lot warmer, and it's maybe not where you want your warmest greens are, right?
Yeah.
So it's this idea of really adjusting, step back and make this assessment, because the one thing I want to have here also, remember my the first key things that I tend to establish is that am I still staying with the more warm colors, or am I all of a sudden having more cool colors, and now it's the temperature of the scene has shifted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm putting a lot more of, so I need to adjust for those. if I'm all of a sudden, you know, somehow making all my greens warmer or cooler, and I wanted it to be a warm, comforting, you know, space.
Well,
I'm
this
really
demo was amazing, Xenia. Thank you so much. You guys, this was so great watching this come together with all of the different shades and temperatures of green. That was so cool to watch.
all right. Well, yeah. I mean, I'll, you know, give you the.
Before we turn the camera away, are you able to scan down a little bit to show your tray?
Oh, my tray. Well,
Yeah,
okay.
they want to see your tray. The
Well,
messiest part of a pastelist.
so do you see this?
Yeah.
Yeah, right there are my colors, and I've, you know, put some on my, yes, it's right here. I actually didn't get to use all of these. Typically, yeah, I can end up with like 30 pieces of pastel sticks
Yeah.
in a scene. So far, I've noticed that I may have like, okay, done, you know, I'm lucky if I did get to the 15 because I am not quite focusing as well. And there's that. Okay, maybe there's yeah, maybe close to 20. You know, so the one thing, yeah, it's like finding those key areas that just are, you know, that where you want the eye to really focus on. But don't forget about, you know, how you allow the viewers or the to go into there. I mean, sure, like that's my distance. I can stand here and see that, you know, that distance is right there, right? But don't forget how you know, allow the viewers to step into your painting. So that's where, you know, I would kind of push some of the color, like pick up little notes of colors here and there that are brighter, right?
Yeah.
To make it a little more interesting.
Well, if you guys are watching, be sure to check out Xenia's website. It's 𝗍𝗲𝗄𝗃.com. We'll put that in the chat. Oh, it's right there on the screen too. Thank you, Amandine. Sure.
Yeah.
Check her out. Follow her on Instagram. Don't forget to check out Pastel Today. Join us every weekday here on Art School Live. Subscribe so you get notifications when we're going live. We've got a great guest host for you next week, and then I will be back the week after that with some new artists for you. And thank you guys all so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget Realism Live. That's coming up in November. It's going to be a great time learning from so many different phenomenal artists. I'm going to be painting along with Pastel, and yeah. Thank you, Xenia, so much. I hope you guys all enjoyed today's demo. And
yeah. Oh, there I am.
Yeah, there you are. I'm so
well,
glad
thank
you guys
you
all
for having me. And
yeah, you're welcome.
I
glad
hope
you did.
there was something useful in that demo that people can get.
That was awesome. Watching all of the different greens come together and watching everything change as you put something down. It's one thing I've been trying to practice lately. 𝗫𝗵𝗵 has her book called Color Relativity, and that's what she talks about. Is,
yeah.
You know,
and that really is what simultaneous contrast.
Yeah,
that relativity. But
it's awesome.
So, well, it's my pleasure.
Yes, awesome.
I'll try. Yeah, I'll post this on my Instagram.
Yes, definitely.
And see how, because it did. I was looking on the screen, and boy, that's not the same color as what I'm actually really seeing on, you know.
Well, either way, we still thought it was beautiful, but awesome. Right? Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Xenia, and we will see you guys tomorrow.
Okay, take care, everyone.
Talking about framing pastels, so be sure to tune in. It's going to be a great time. I'm super excited. We'll see you guys tomorrow.